It's a shoe or it's an actual trigger loss or cost. And if it's like the side was rusting out and it collapsed, then no, that's a maintenance issue. So.
Good morning to everyone. Appreciate you all being here for our Scott County Fiscal Court. It's April work session. It's hard to believe we're in April, and appreciate you being here. We have a few presentations and some matters to attend to and to discuss. So I would like to ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to start our session. Let us pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, before we get started into our business, we'll just make mention of, we've had quite a bit of rain and weather, and appreciate all the response and effort from EMA, from our road department, and then our fire department, EMS, and law enforcement as well, and dispatch. I know dispatch has probably called JR and Mike 5,000 times in the last week, but we are blessed beyond measure to have great people taking care of us, and I just wanted to make mention of that. Also would ask Mike to comment and add anything as well, but I think 2 nights ago we had 101 people take shelter on Lyle Road in the new shelter that we, the Fiscal Court, put in place in collaboration there with the ownership of the trailer park right there. And then we had 37 people take shelter in Stamping Ground there at that shelter that we put in place at the EMS station property. And then very grateful, Superintendent Billy Parker with Faith Baptist Church having some damage. That was a shelter that we had a partnership for a long time with Mike, and because of the damage, we could not use that. So Scott County High School, the new Scott County High School, was used, and about 21 people took shelter there. So appreciate their collaboration and partnership there to help people feel a little bit more safe. Our siren system definitely worked, and Facebook let us know about it. So we'll give that 2 thumbs up. But I know that we're not out of the woods. We'll ask you all to say a little prayer for the rains to kind of give us a little relief today and waters to go down, because, Elkhorn Creek is as high as I've seen it in a while, and it's not crested yet for sure. So I'd ask you to say a little prayer for that. Any comment from any member of the court?
I had a question for Mike, and this was about the shelter on Lyle Road. I actually got a phone call about this yesterday. So, I know the doors are automatically opened by remote.
No,
they're not. Okay, they're physically opened. And the question I got was, there were some people deciding, Hispanic folks deciding whether they should go or not, and they were afraid that if they got there, the doors would be locked. And they said, do I knock on the door, or can you explain that process?
Absolutely. And I had the same phone calls. The storm that we had on Sunday, there were several people that got to the shelter before I got it unlocked. We unlocked it at a specific time and tried to share that message as much as possible, but it didn't get out to the Spanish-speaking folks.
Okay.
So they went and found a locked door. I'm going to do like a handbill, a campaign to go and put something on everybody's door saying, here's when it will be open, the protocols for what they can expect. And then also going to go ahead and figure out some sort of strobe light system so we can put a strobe light on a pole. When we unlock the door and turn on the power to the unit, just have a light on so that the people can see that here is it's available and it's ready.
So that's a great idea, and I appreciate your work on that. So you're going to deliver handbills and put on people's doors, in English and Spanish,
right?
And that's a great idea.
Because I answered those phone calls, and I felt horrible because I personally staffed the shelter on Sunday night, and we brought in several families that I thought we were successful, but apparently there was 4 or 5 families that got there a couple minutes before I did, and turned around and went home or found other accommodations.
Maybe we can put a permanent signage there that says in both English and Spanish that says that this will be opened in the event of a tornado watch or warning being issued.
Right. Yeah. We'll do that for sure.
Is it in the event of a watch as well?
It's
Or
unlocked.
just
It'll be
unlocked.
unlocked when we go to tornado watch.
Okay.
Somebody in authority will be there as the storm gets close because
Okay.
National Weather Service is known to have a tornado watch for hours on end.
Right.
And,
That's why I was asking.
But there are several people that would feel better sitting in that metal building than being at their house. So it's going to be open and available to the people that want to use it. And then, like I said, we have staff that would go in and be authorized to lock it down and survive the storm like we did Wednesday night.
Do we keep water?
We do.
Bottled water in? Okay.
Keep water. It's got a camper toilet. So absolutely sparse conditions, but we get through. But I did want to say that we put 101 people in that one on Reno Drive, and they trashed it. I mean, water and food and paper, and it's going to be several hours cleaning it up. So it's just the cost of doing business. But,
Has it been cleaned up yet?
It has not.
Do you think the crew from the jail could do that
They
instead of your
probably
folks
could.
having to do it?
They probably could, but it's not a big deal. It's just a little frustrating that we.
Does it have room for any more? That sounds pretty full.
Yeah.
101.
Yeah.
It was standing room in the aisle, right?
Well, that's exactly it. The sticker on the wall says it holds 92, so we got 101. Trying to figure out if I can cut the metal off of the bathroom walls because that takes a large chunk of real estate out of there.
Close your ears, Chief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a point where the doors are locked where people can't get in?
Is there a point where?
Like, I guess if a tornado does hit, like
Yes.
if somebody's out there trying to get in, they're like, I'm sure you can't open the doors because it would.
It's a judgment call with the people that
By
are
the
inside.
staff there.
But basically, they are authorized to keep people out. I mean, once we lock down for tornado warning and the sirens are going, keep the door locked and protect the people that are inside.
But if you could get like you were saying, a strobe light that flashed and saying, "Hey, this is open."
Right, and I'm going to go ahead and order another decal because we have a 2-foot by 2-foot sticker on the door that says, "If you find this door locked and you need to get in, call this phone number." But it wasn't in Spanish. So
if you want to talk a little, any other questions about the shelters?
Does it have electrical plugs, like if somebody brought their? Okay.
it's very minimal. There's 2 GFI plugs, one in the front, one in the back. But it's not connected to grid power. So,
Okay.
so
it's
that's
just generator.
It's just solar.
Okay.
And that's what we ran into Wednesday night. People were in there at 10 p.m. and the storm didn't come till closer to 2. as the storm got close, the power shut off because people were plugging in cell phones and doing all kinds of stuff. So we're going to have to come up with rules for what can and can't be plugged in, or have extra batteries or something.
We'll navigate it. It just kind of the learning curve.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a new shelter.
But overall, Judge, this was, I think, a success.
Oh,
I mean, it was
100%.
great.
Yeah.
101 people
Yeah.
felt like they needed shelter, and we were able to have a place that they could take shelter that's safe. So, yes, sir.
So when you said you lost power, so no lighting? At
No,
two-
no, we
2
just
o'clock?
had to bring in flashlights and scene lights. Yeah, it's the solar panel feeds two 12-volt batteries in series, and we've never been in a situation where we were operating for 6 hours in a row. So the one in Stamping Ground was fine. Nobody had anything plugged in over there, and it was still working at 7 o'clock in the morning. This one, when they put in their 8-plug power strip and started drawing
They
down
brought a
the
power strip. Well, it's a learning curve.
Yeah,
but
we just didn't know.
maybe we can look at options. Jared?
I can tell you 37 at Stamping Ground probably is a record also, so that's something to be proud of. Because for the longest time, we could never get people to, like when we opened up the churches down in the years past, they wouldn't come. So that's pretty much, like Mike said, probably the majority of people on the trailer park also.
Yeah.
Mike, just real quick, on the Lyle Road one, sounds like it was at capacity, but you all also had folks that didn't know it was open because they didn't speak English or whatever. Do you have any idea of the estimate of how many other people might have, if they had showed up, how much more need there was?
Well, I'm actually talking about two different incidents. People that showed up and it was locked was on Sunday.
Sunday.
The previous
Oh,
storm.
okay, gotcha.
But I do know that I was recommending to people that called me on the phone that they try to find a different place.
Yeah, 'cause it was
because
full.
it's 350 homes at the trailer park,
Yeah.
and we have room for 100 people. So,
Okay.
if you have an option with 12 hours before the storm, find a friend or find a basement. Do something else, and this is available for basically running across the street because you have no more options.
Yes. And there's we had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And 92 was in this first shelter, and if the court wants to apply for a FEMA grant in the future or look at funding, I think that's a discussion that we need to have. And but I think the turnout shows that it's going to be used in the future and anticipated. So I think it's a good program. So appreciate it. Do you want to talk about, I know JR's been out and I know you've been out. I talked to JR last night in the evening, and the waters we had roads closed yesterday. Waters went down, but then overnight they went back up, and we've got about 8 closed.
It's probably more than that with the
probably
storm that
more
came
than that
through
now.
at 5 o'clock this morning. There's a whole bunch. As soon as I get to sit down again, I'll forward the link. I've built an interactive map for the road closures. So basically, you'll be able to zoom in on the map. You'll see all of the dots where the roads are closed, and then click on the dot. It says how long it will be closed, whether it's 100% or just water rising and falling. So I think that's going to help out a lot. People,
absolutely.
People be able to see and not have to call or.
Yeah. And traditionally, you've got the regular spots that always get closed: Pokeberry, Davis Turkey Foot, Luke. Those regular roads. But having something like that's be a big benefit, and we'll absolutely share that as well, Mike. Anything else for Mike, or any other questions? And appreciate your work, appreciate the time and effort. Let's just pray that the rain slows down a little
Exactly.
bit. So, anything else there? We will move on then. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Bill Dawson, Mr. John Lacey, thank you all for being here today. Kelly Corman and I met not too long ago, about a month ago probably, and talked about the historical, the history behind the PDR program, in that purchase of development rights. For those that don't know the acronyms, there's so many acronyms out there. But this program is actually still in ordinance form. It's active. It's just not been funded for several years, going back before I became judge. Kelly and I met, and we all talked, and thought it would be a good opportunity to share an update about the purchase of development rights program. And I'm going to segue that into that, I've been meeting for the last 6 months. Mr. Howard's been at several of those meetings with Holden Fleming and our planning commission folks and groups of shareholders. It's just talking about protecting prime farmlands in Scott County. And I've been talking about that we've had about 5 or 6 meetings, and the group is actually, Holden actually drafted a letter that will be coming to you all. Holden's given anyone that's been coming to those meetings an opportunity to come by and sign it, and then we'll forward that here to this body, and then this body can take up some of the recommendations and discuss some of the issues that have been on those agendas for the last 5 or 6 months. So this is definitely part of that. I think that it could be considered in the future. So I'm glad to have you all. Invite you to take the floor.
Thank you, Judge Kivington. Honorable members of the Fiscal Court.
Some of them.
Some
of them are honorable.
I afford that privilege to everybody. Apologize for my hat, but fluorescent lights, I have a macular degeneration problem, and that bothers me.
No worries.
The Scott County Purchase of Development Rights Program was established in 2008 by Ordinance 0808, the month and the year. It was a ordinance to protect prime farmland and works in conjunction with the USDA NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, on a 50-50 match basis. Next slide, please. The Rural Land Management Board was established by this ordinance and consists of 14 members. 3 of those members are members of the Fiscal Court, so that the court would have oversight into the actions of the board, make sure that everything was done appropriately and in accordance with the ordinance and rules of the Fiscal Court. These people came from, served on this board: Scott County Farm Bureau, Beef Cattle Association, the Thoroughbred Association, Buildings and Industries Association, Association of Realtors, Tourism, the Georgetown College Division of Natural Resource Sciences, the Scott County Conservation District, and the Scott County Chamber of Commerce. We also have some non-voting members that represent the city of Sadyville, the city of Stamping Ground, Georgetown, the County Extension Service Manager. All right, next slide. A steering committee was established around 2005 because of, we all know Toyota came to Scott County and land started to disappear. A lot of folks showed up investing in properties in anticipation of turning that property over for the development. We had folks, my next door neighbors came from California when the farm sold next door. And that farm has sold 7 times since then.
7 times?
Yeah, 7 times. It is now 2 20-acre tracts and 5 5-acre tracts. Or more than 5, actually. So, made an impact. So, a couple folks in the community, one was Judge Lusby, another was Fred Newell, that were very influential in getting this process started. I happen to be serving on the Soil Conservation Board, and I was nominated to the Planning Commission. And about this same time when we started the process, involving the Planning Commission very heavily. So the steering committee met, concerned citizens in the community. We identified the needs, looked at what our resources were, and of course Planning and Zoning actually wrote the basis of the ordinance. So it all came through our local county government. Next slide. This is a voluntary program. The individuals who sign up to participate in this program are foregoing future sales of that property, whatever that may be, in order to have those dollars available to them now so that they might be used. And Scott County's government said, yes, we will offer this service to our community. Next slide. Some of the things that were advantages: higher property values. Of course, it depends on which side of the coin you are on. If you're selling, you want higher property values, but if you're purchasing, you don't. But I don't think that PDR program has made a significant impact on that, as we have seen Toyota's influence in our community, pushing up land prices. Increasing tourism by keeping the rural landscape available. Think of the aesthetics as you drive in to Georgetown from each direction, and you know, as Judge Lusby used to say, it's one of the greatest places in the world to live, but we're going to love it to death if we're not careful. So another reason that we want to protect some land. Farming diversification, environmental protection is another big area, very big area. Reduction in the cost of public services. When we started this program, I did some research along with the committee. We found that the cost to provide public services to rural farmland was about $60, $50 to $60 for every $100 of tax revenue generated by that land. Compared to developed land, houses, business property, was somewhere in the neighborhood of $160 to $170 for every $100 of revenue generated for that property. So the cost of services is vastly different. To rural land is much cheaper to service. Now, Scott County has probably a better public service rating than most communities, rural communities in the area, but it still was considerably cheaper. Protection of, yes?
Would you mind to hit those numbers again? You said if it remains farmland,
Right.
per $100 of revenue, it's 60?
Around $60, right.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, yeah. Now, of course, these numbers I'm sure have changed. We have not reevaluated that process. Protection of soils. Want to hit on that slightly. We have some of the oldest soil in the entire United States. If you look at the geological studies, the Cincinnatian shelf raised up out of the primordial oceans along with the Appalachians rising up. So the first soils that came available and were not impacted by glaciation, no glaciers moved in to deposit new soil. Our soils are some of the oldest, some of the most fertile because of the limestone base, but also very, very shallow. And once they are disturbed, they do not return to productivity for generations. So economic diversification, historical preservation, and growth management to some point or another. You know, that's where the planning and zoning comes into the process. Next slide. Disadvantages is complex. It's difficult. The process required to go through all the steps involved takes 2 to 3 years. it takes a while. It's difficult. Can restrict growth if we are not careful in how we do it. Availability of funds, we all know that. 2008, the housing market crashed and brought us into a major recession right as we got this program underway, and it kind of pulled the legs out from under us. So it was difficult to come in. And then options, of course, on land development are involved in that. Next slide. What do we protect? Well, we're out to protect our aesthetic view, our soils and pasture lands, croplands, unique historical areas, and water. One of the major factors in our program is protection of water. And if we put soil in to raise above the floodplain, we just, for every cubic foot we put in here, we probably disrupt 3 to 4 cubic feet of water somewhere else, either behind that soil that we put in, that field that we put in, or on downstream, because we've taken floodplain away from the natural course. If you drove to town today, Rick, did you notice some floodplain?
Noticed it in my driveway, John.
And so, you know, that's all part of it. All right, next slide. Scott County continues to rank in the top 20 of all counties in the state as far as agricultural production. We had cash receipts of $78,744,000 in 2002. Now, this is the last year that we could get census
22?
records. 22.
Yeah.
You know, the census hadn't been published for 23 yet, and of course it'll be another year before 24 will be available. Scott County had 781 farms, totaling 114,000 acres. Now, there's a possibility that not every farmer reported to the Department of Ag Statistics of Kentucky Department of Agriculture, but this is a very close approximation.
Now, when you report on farms, you're saying any person that's got land over 10 acres?
Anybody that sells over $1,000 of income off of the property, so it can be private. If we go back to 2017, we had a 2% increase in farm numbers. Now, how's that possible? Well, I called Frankfurt to find out, and they said that the number of farm sales reported had increased. So people with 5 acres that are selling $1,000 worth of produce, or having a cow or 2 or some sheep, we're reporting those. So it, you know, our minimum basis is 10 acres.
Yeah.
But, and it is across what we consider farmland across the state of Kentucky. But if you have less than that, and you are making agricultural sales, farmers market or wherever.
Yeah, there's some exemptions, I believe, if you have 5 acres, horticulture and certain things.
Right.
If you report that sale, I assume that's what y'all are concluding as a farm.
Right.
Okay.
But we have seen a significant loss in property, and that's one of the reasons why farmland preservation, private farmland preservation, has become an issue. We're down 12%. We've lost about 15,000 acres. Now, when we started the program, we'd lost 7,000 acres from 2000 to 2008. So we've doubled that since 2017. And this is according to the Ag Statistics. Next slide. What goes into it? We have a minimum criteria, minimum of 10 acres, prime farmland or farmland of significant importance is how the USDA relates to it. Application procedures, or applications are made available to anybody. They call the Conservation District office, get in touch with Bill. He affords them a application. Once the applications are received, the board looked at those applications. Bill took those, wrote a number across it and the date they were received at the top, and that's all we knew about them. We didn't know who they were, had no other earthly idea as to what they were doing, and then we ranked those according to our ranking score sheet. Negotiated with the landowners, conducted appraisals, purchase, and of course the recording of that on the deed. Next slide. Minimum criteria: good marketable, fee simple title to the parcel, must be agricultural land in use, free and clear non-conforming uses. There's a whole list of those things. You can't mine, you can't have a dump, you can't have underground storage tanks and so forth. Minimum parcel size is at 10 acres, and maintain a farm land conservation program through the Soil Conservation District in the county. Next slide. Evaluation process. Bill, if you would. Bill. Give everybody a copy of that real quick.
Thank you, Bill.
And Bill has
Thank you, Bill.
been hired as our case manager
Thanks.
and has carried us through this program, has done all the evaluations, has been the liaison with the USDA, and has a complete, thorough working knowledge of the program. I know the ordinance inside and out, but Bill knows the deed of conservation easement. We worked on it together, but he is the person who has worked with each of the landowners. The things we look at: size of parcel. As far as USDA is concerned, the bigger the better. They afford most points to largest land masses. We don't operate quite that way, but we do put a lot of points to it. Length of public road frontage, so that protects the aesthetic vistas. The proximity application: is it close to another piece of property that has been preserved for some reason or another? You know, parks, so forth. Quality of soils: this is the highest ranking of all. It has a maximum of 30 points if 80% of the property is prime farmland. Every property that we have currently on the books is over 80% prime farmland. Well, it behooves us to think about protecting prime farmland for long-term food security. We may not always have the avenues of food coming into us. It may become more necessary sometime in the future that we grow more of our own food locally. We're seeing trends towards this, but it has not arrived yet. Environmentally sensitive areas, agricultural improvements, farm activities: that it has to be an active farm. Designated rural greenways is another. A green belt might be attached to some of these. Natural protection areas that could be impacted by any kind of development. Historical resources, scenic resources, linkages, again, that refers back to the parks and other preserved type properties. Next slide. The appraisal process is done by a licensed appraiser locally. Once he completes it, and it's two appraisals. It's one at your property if you sell it at 5-acre tracts, and one at its agricultural value. So it's two separate appraisals, then consistent. Then it is sent to the USDA, and they appraise that and then confer back with a local appraiser in order to get a set price that they agree with and that we agree with. Then it goes through a list there of all the things that it's appraised upon. But this is the process. When we first started it took 6 months for that process to occur between the USDA and our local appraiser. Sometime along the line, somebody decided it would be a great idea to privatize all this and use a private appraiser for the USDA's portion So we went from 16 months to the last property we got. It took us 18 months to get that appraisal process done. So that
Is that still the practice?
as far as we know, it's still the practice.
Yes.
But it certainly added, because they were where, Kansas City?
Yes.
Kansas City, Missouri, in the Plains, Great Plains, and they didn't realize Scott County thoroughbred bluegrass land. And it was a circus. It caused us to go over our time ranking with the court, our time, that money had to come back and request, and didn't help the PDR program at all by having such a long, extended process. All right, next slide. Scott County soils map. This shows you the approximation, everything below the green kind of fits into the ranking process. The blue, purples, those are the ones that are going to rank highest on the process. The land above that's going to still qualify, but it's going to be farther down the list. If somebody down here has property they offer, it's going to get it before this one is, depending on the rate.
And that green line is for just people listening at home. Would it be fair to say that's the approximate area of Rogers Gap Road?
Right.
I would.
Yeah, it cuts across Rogers Gap and goes.
And this is a very similar map that Planning and Zoning did as part of the
Right.
ag stakeholders meetings that we've been having, that shows 40-acre parcels, and then it shows the darker green being a higher percentage of prime farmland, lighter green, lesser percentage of prime farmland, and it corresponds exactly with your
Right.
purple. I mean, it's the numbers are the numbers.
Right, right.
So,
Thank you.
So it affords an opportunity for people to participate in the program, but not everybody. But there are some properties that could fall into being acceptable creek bottom land or land that is highly historical, that has unique features that might.
but the primary purpose of the PDR program is to preserve prime farmland.
Correct.
And all those other things that you mentioned that go into the scoring, those aesthetics, those are all important.
But they rank lower on.
They rank lower, but
Yeah, there's nobody with 30 points.
the priority is
Except prime farmland.
the preservation of prime farmland.
Correct. All right, next slide. Legal documents that we had to do, 501c3, hired a PDR case manager, developed a cooperative agreement with the USDA, and that's a lengthy process as well. It's a lot of back and forth between what they will accept and what we do, and that changes with every farm bill. You probably heard talk about the farm bill being bumped forward another. It should have. 2018 was the last one we had. Should happen every 5 years. So we're a few years rear now, and might get one this year, might not, don't know. So everything that was in it has just simply been moved forward. Deed of conservation easement, that's something, that is our agreement with the USDA and is what becomes the official record for the property. All right, next slide. And these are just the simple steps that we make with the landowner that carries out the process. Next slide. We currently have 6 farms protected, total 674 acres. We have 8 applications on file, and those amount to 1,136 acres. And I just looked at one of the recent files that Bill had. We have interest by another 20 people. Potentials.
The 6 farms in the total of 674 acres, you had said this is a 1-to-1 match.
Right.
To get that done, to protect those 674 acres, how much did the fiscal court support in that effort when that was done, dollar-wise?
Dollar-wise, Bill, what was that total? It was just over,
About $1,060,000,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, just a little over $1 million. And when we figured that out by acres and divided it, it comes out to $1,646 an acre. That's what the court put into the process. Now, the court has a little bit higher cost than the USDA in that we provide the appraisals and the title search. And one other thing, Bill, what else do we do? Appraisal, title search, and some legal. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah. But you currently have 8 applications,
Right.
a total of 1,136 acres
Correct.
that want to be considered for funding.
They have been evaluated. We have a ranking on those 8. The USDA has not done their ranking, but we have locally.
And along those lines, you know, if you wanted to, like, you've continued to take applications.
Right.
And you have how many people that have expressed interest?
20.
20. So if the court wanted to consider future funding,
Right.
then the process would be to consider those that have been evaluated first. And
Before we'd open up again for a new application round, yes.
so even if, let's just say that the court, let's just use a number, put a $500,000 in a budget for next year
Right.
to fund. Like, what's the timeline like to make that, to get off, you know, is it 18 plus months probably?
Probably. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Bill, I had Bill call the USDA and get an estimation. And Bill, what was their response?
Well, when we talked with y'all before, we talked about the 75-25 split rather than 50.
Yes, and I was going to ask about, because you all had mentioned that you thought that the match might have changed where it would be 25 local, 75
Right.
federal.
Right.
Is that not the case?
No, technically, the year of 2025, deadline's already missed. We can't get any funding through budget funds. And for 2026, the deadline would be November and December of this year. That would only be for the 50-50 split. When I talked to Catherine Terry in the USDA in Lexington, they're really confused. They don't know whether the funding's going to come out of Washington or not, even for the 2025. You know how that goes.
Just with the question marks of federal funding on a lot of programs.
Right.
But they already have funds for 2025, so hopefully they'll be able to get that. But when I pressed her on the 75-25, that falls under what they call the RCPP part of the program. And it's only for highly underserved individuals, which she explained it was veterans, Black, Hispanics, and disabled. But with the problem that's going on with the DEI in Washington right now, they're not even sure that that's going to hold up. So,
A lot of question marks.
A lot
Yeah.
of question marks. Right.
but they still feel confident that they will still have some funding for 2026 going forward. They just don't know how much. So
Okay.
that kind of makes it.
So, if the court chooses to give us a little funding, we'll have to know that in advance of October.
No.
Probably sooner than that, probably August.
Our budget process, we currently have, we've been collecting all the budget requests from all of our departments, all of our interlocals, and we're compiling all of that. Michelle's been working on that a lot. We'll start making budget considerations and discussions, and then our goal is to have a first reading I believe it's May 22nd, and then a second reading the second Friday in June, which I think is June 13th. So then we send that to DLG after they've already reviewed it once, and they make it official. It has to be advertised. But if we're going to do this, the court has to get, like, this is the right time to have the conversation.
Right.
And
Yeah, we need to know before we
yeah,
go to the USDA and say,
Right.
here's properties that we have
Correct.
looked at, or we have on file.
yeah.
We have two that have scored the same. They're
The exact same.
The exact same.
Well, questions from the court, and let me say that thank you for coming.
Let me hit one more slide
All right.
real quick.
What next
Next
slide?
These are the magistrate districts in the county. Where are the properties? District 3
I know where they are.
has 2. District 4 has 4. But that does not exclude the other districts, because District 1, we have an application from District 1. As you come down Dry Run, that watershed has produced over the years excellent soils that fit into our category. District, can't see it, District 2, lots of land up all the way up to Galloway fits into the criteria. And some historic areas. As a matter of fact, we have an application from or a potential application from other historic areas in that area. Some of the Georgetown areas, don't know if we can get into those, because as we talk about, not limiting future growth.
It would have been a great idea 20, 30 years ago.
30 years ago, right.
What questions?
I don't really have questions. Well, mainly comments. First of all, I want to thank John, because it's a great presentation. And I was on my first year on the court is when that, and we had a little bit of an issue, is when that property that was in the process in the previous court, which I think, and Mr. Dawson as well, I want to thank him, because he's the guy that, in my view, carries the water and overseeing these properties, and he's very knowledgeable, and he visits them at least once a year, and checks in with them, make sure they're going by their guidelines, and I think that's all been good, hasn't it, Bill? As far as I know, but in the presentation process, I want to go back to my first year on the court, because the first thing we found out was the process took so long, it came in under a new court.
Right.
Several of us were brand new to the process, and you made a great presentation then as well. And so I'm a numbers guy a lot of times. I like to know what it's going to cost, and so I'm going to share what I found out, and it's not changed. In fact, it's probably gotten worse. If we stayed under the 50-50, and I didn't know about the potential changes of the 75-25, because let me give this caveat. I'm in favor of the land preservation, absolutely. But my problem is the cost of it is one, and then did you want to finish this slide? Am I too early on questions?
No.
You good?
Yeah.
So that one slide presentation where basically it's the bottom half of the county is all that's ever going to qualify, and even it's less than the bottom half, really. But there's that up to Rogers Gap.
Right.
They have potential. So it leaves a lot of the folks out, but all the folks get to contribute. It's taxpayer dollars. And so I did quick math, and the ordinance calls for, the goal is.
Let's not worry about that goal.
Let him finish, and then
okay.
and then
All right,
and then
all right.
I'll be more than happy
just
to.
because it's the real numbers. Again, I still would like to be able to figure out a way to do this, but it's still at this point. I'm listening intently. I always do, because I want to see this happen. But the goal of the ordinance is to set aside 60,000 acres. That's a huge goal.
That's a huge goal.
It was a huge goal, but that's what it says.
Yeah.
And that's 1/3 of the county. Because back then, when you made that first presentation, I went to our PVA at the time and asked him, and round figures, there's 180,000 acres in Scott County. And so 60,000, as you all know, is a third of the county.
182,400.
So I'm trying to round off, Judge,
Yes, sir.
so I can be quiet here. So when I looked at the 600 acres, and the original contribution was $1 million from the county. That was $1 million. And I know some of it got spent on extra administration, getting the program going. But when you divided that out, $1 million secured or PDR'd 600 acres. So if you want to go for 60,000 acres, that's $100 million. And that was at those costs. I'm just doing simple math. There's a little bit more to it than that, but that's a round figure we can legitimately, in my mind, talk about. And that's direct cost to the county taxpayers, and then it's indirect because we all pay federal taxes too. And so it becomes an indirect when the federal government kicks in their 50% or half at this time. It'd be a better program if it was 75-25. Yeah. So anyhow, I just wanted to make those comments. Again, I'm not against this. I live in that little area. I didn't know it when I bought the place, but they tell me the topsoil runs deep where I live. Yeah. And when I built my basement, I literally didn't get 3 rocks that big. Yeah. Yeah. And I dug 10 feet down. So
it's not that way on Rogers Gap.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to drag out conversation on the initial discussion, but I agree that's a lot of money. It's a lot of taxpayer dollars. But at the end of the day, when you start thinking about roads, repaving roads, infrastructure with water and sewer that might possibly have to go to that development that may come in, then you talk about fire, EMS, sheriff. I mean, when you think about long-term
community services,
if you're spending $1 million today, but you would spend $20 million or more over
time,
you know, I guess, you know, to offset that, if somebody came to the argument, well, you're doing this and it's costing us this much, but what would it cost us long-term if that became developed? Because I was looking at planning and zonings. I guess they had a meeting last night, and I was looking at their agenda, and there's 132 acres off Cynthiana Road. Well, what's that going to cost the county long-term? And I don't know what the development plan is. I don't know if it's 10-acre lots. I don't know if it's 5-acre lots. I don't know if it's a cluster. I don't know what it is. But long-term, what's that development going to cost the county taxpayers as opposed to if it remained farmland over that time?
Real consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me address that 60,000 acres.
Yes, sir.
We were young and naive. I had some members on.
I'd like to be young and naive again.
Yeah. Had some members on the steering committee that were very
gung ho.
Gung ho. That's a good word. Thank you.
Well, I'll make a comment too.
No, Kelly Corman.
And I do like the program, and I think it's important that we try to save some farmland. I know that's a lofty goal, and on the piggyback of that is, like, I understand that's probably not realistic, but at the same time, I think doing nothing and letting some of these farms slip away is not a good option either. So I guess my question would be, if we try to revive the program and get some funding, what do you think the rural land, the board would like to ask for us to consider?
Well, Bill, we've got 2.
Yeah, if you take the 2 that's tied, and you go back and look at the cost of average cost of $1,646, you round that up to $2,000 an acre, you're looking at somewhere around $500.
That would be our portion, and then we'd ask for the funding for that, or is that?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
basically $1 million project, if we could do 50-50 with the split.
Split it. Right.
And how many acres would that protect?
245.
245 forever.
Right. Forever.
And
again in District 4.
but Chad Wallace has a comment. Question.
And I want to preface this by saying, Cam, if you need to pull the leash back on me, please do.
Go ahead and start.
My only
Mute.
I'm like the rest of them. And my general view is that I think this is a great idea. However, what has left a bad taste in my mouth is that we have had someone who has been in the PDR program, purchased property,
Right.
and then now wants to relinquish those PDR rights, and I don't know where.
They want to transfer.
They wanted to subdivide
Yeah.
property.
Subdivided
And,
property.
and that's not what they originally agreed to.
And that was not the original owner.
Yeah.
There was an original, you're right, you're not wrong, but yeah, originally it was purchased by one owner. This owner acquired it from that owner. It's still subject to all this.
But when that owner bought it, that
All that
easement
applies.
was on that
Property.
entirety
Yeah.
of that property.
And they wanted to subdivide
Yeah.
part of it out.
And are we still in that case?
No, it's been
but
settled. There was some litigation on that, and there's nothing pending. Yeah, there's like 3 cases, as you held up 3 fingers.
Yeah, 3 cases.
Barry Stills represented Scott County Fiscal Court and the Rural Land Management Board on that, and
It
as far
never
as I
made
know,
it to a
it's
hearing. The
died,
judge
but
in every
I knew it
case.
had
Not
got to a certain
necessarily
point
permanent.
where it kind of went in our favor, but I didn't know if there would ever been any.
There's nothing
Was
to
there
say.
a ruling, or
Well,
was
there
it
were-
just kind of withdrawn?
sort of procedural. So initially, they filed a lawsuit in federal court naming county, the Rural Land Management Board, and the federal government. That was dismissed essentially on procedural grounds. They refiled in Scott Circuit Court without naming the federal government, which is an essential party. That party joined in. Then it got removed to federal court. Then they refiled it in Scott Circuit Court without naming the federal government. So essentially it's been filed and dismissed 3 times, and then nothing's happened. And that's been a year and a half,
Year and a half
more than
now.
that. Knock on wood.
And that happens,
I check on it
according to
pretty
the
regularly.
folks in Lexington USDA, that when property changes hands, the initial lease, somebody wants to divide up the easement, and
I will make.
that's part of it.
Yeah, I will make the comment that, what can we do to have some vision about making, you want to look up in 10 years and not be in the same place we are today with another loss of another 12% or greater. I think that's the big picture, for our community. And, and if you consistently supported something like this over the next decade, how many acres could be designated and preserved? I think that's the big picture. Now, along with that, what can we put in as a fiscal court to have more balance in our growth and support having more balance? And I think that's what we've been talking about for the last 6 months in these ag stakeholder meetings. Looking at, there's another program called the TDR, Transfer of Development Rights. And there's a lot of questions about that. This is PDR. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's the free market pushes the transfer, and it's not public dollars. So that's a separate program that could benefit. And it's used in other places. Looking at tweaking our zoning ordinance, a lot of discussion has been about cluster. How do we make the cluster more an advantage to preserve? Instead of losing 200, you're developing on 100 and saving 100. That kind. What can we do to make it pencil? There was a lady, and I don't think she'd care, but Rita's a local farm owner, but also a local real estate agent and involved a lot. And she says, how can you make it pencil, work for people? And that's, a piece of the conversation as well. There's also been mention of mini clusters. And that was brought up by a member of the Soil Conservation District about being able to put 3 homes, single-family homes, on one 5-acre lot using one driveway, but limiting how many you have of those. And
There's some options.
and there's been discussion about, do we revisit the minimum lot size? And that'll be on this question, but I do not support changing the minimum lot size without compensating people, and that's a taking, in my opinion. If we change that, and I'm only one vote, and but you know, if you because I think we have to keep in mind private property rights, and a lot of our farmers that have been engaged in agriculture for a long time, that their property is their investment. But what can we do to help bring some balance to this and help people have options? The other thing is possibly hiring a consultant that helps consult people that are looking at putting their farms into an easement, into a conservation easement, and advising them on the tax benefits of that instead of straight selling. That's another piece. And Philip and anybody, and Rick's been there for me. What else has been? Am I leaving anything else? Because you've been a lot of those meetings, and I appreciate you being there. And you're you're a duly elected member of our Soil Conservation Board.
It's just like what
you want to step, and I hope you don't feel like I put you on the spot, but I value your opinion.
Well, and Farm Bureau kind of goes along with the same kind of thinking, as well as Mitch McConnell's trying to get done at this time with the taxation issues with the corporate, or not the corporate, but the capital gains tax. You know, when there's some legislature that's trying to be presented in the correct ways and forms, trying to get it done. So the transfer of the property can go from the existing farmer to a younger generation farmer. Well, they're trying to kind of change that and maybe just make that a baseline of a farming entity. So that's going to help a lot in the sales side of things. It's going to look a little less on the purchase or on the sales side of things, but in the grand scheme, the money going in the farmer's pocket still may be the same. Still keep that land in agriculture. So.
And there's also been conversation, a theme in that, and it is, would the fiscal court consider, the topic of, a revenue stream to go towards something like the PDR, that would not rely so much on the USDA, and essentially it would be anytime you removed acreage from an A1 category and developed it, there would be some type of impact fee. That's been a conversation that's been in those conversations as well. And that's another topic to consider as well. Thank you, Phil.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yes, sir.
So a lot of this conversation, I think about in my district, most of my district lies within the city. But you look at the bypass and the development of farms along the bypass. No matter what we do, if the city doesn't agree with it and they annex the property in there, we're just screaming at the windmill. It doesn't help.
Screaming at
the windmill. I used that the other day, and I'm like, but I mean, so at that situation, there's more development going on along the bypass, and those farms that are being developed out quickly, whether it's residential, multifamily apartment complexes or commercial, that's a more today issue than something 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Because how do you offset that? Because some of that really prime farmland is lying along that bypass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
And we can talk about all this other, but if we don't help solve that problem in the immediate future, then we've already moved out 5 miles outside the city limits, and the city limits are going to get that 5 miles at the end of the day.
What you're saying is if we put something like this in place, it is more immediate.
I would think that it would need to
and I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I'm saying that's the immediate problem.
Yes.
So what would be the solution to that immediate problem?
I think Philip wanted to make another comment. Philip?
One more thing. And a lot of information is not readily available to everybody at this time, but the conservation districts, they've changed the acreage from 250 acres of a farm to 50 acres. So if a farmer, there's a lot of farmers out there that are just determined to keep this in conservation. We can sign that up in an agricultural conservation district, and it's in its own little entity, and it can't be annexed. As far as I'm understanding.
Okay.
And there's a map I can share with the court about going into that zone.
And once you look at the maps and you kind of figure out there are several farms on the northern end of the bypass that
especially in the Burton Road area.
Right. Even the 25.
Yes.
North
So
25.
especially, but I'll share that with you all because I have access from planning and zoning.
And that was just changed July last year, I think. On the
down
acreage
to
sizes.
50.
Yeah, down to 50.
Down from 250, really? Wow.
So, any other questions before we wrap this up? And would you like to say anything
Well,
else?
if there's anything in the ordinance, particularly your 60,000 acres, that we need to revise,
We probably should.
yeah, we should. We should.
I mean,
we
word
realize- we
different or
realize
something.
It's not possible, and it's not going to, history says that it's not possible. So, if we could get a farm or two per year, 100, 200
And
acres.
your request would be for the court to consider funding. And,
Correct.
And if you all want to go back and share some additional information with me that I can share about, okay, if you did this for the next 3 years, then you could potentially protect X, Y, Z, this many acres. Now, the only thing I would, and people continue to make application, but I would ask if we decided to fund additional dollars, and we can't commit, David always reminds me, we cannot commit future courts. We can't say, hey, next 10 years we're going to give X.
Right.
We can't do that. But we can make a statement that says we want to try to support this ongoing and would encourage future courts to consider
You can pass a
X.
resolution.
Yeah, pass a
For this
resolution
court.
saying we want
Yeah.
to do this now, and we want to encourage future courts to consider continuing this for all these reasons that's listed in the PDR ordinance. And I think if we did that and looked at it, and then we tweaked some zoning things, and we look at the holistic part of it and trying to bring balance, I think that's what helps. But at the same time, I want to. I don't want to, I want to try to help and try to bring balance. But at the same time, I want to give you, the reality is this. The cost the main reason we are here today is to provide services to our community. And the cost is never going to be less to provide those services. So we've been very good about being stewards of tax dollars. We're blessed with increasing revenue from OLT. But we have to strategically also look at, where can we add a little bit of industrial land that doesn't impact the ag as much. And let's just talk about the Wiles situation. We were looking at 500 acres there and going into BP1. And there was concerns from local folks, neighbors, and others that it wasn't the right place. And I heard repeatedly, we'll go out near the interstates. The costs for land at interstates are extremely high, and ownership. I approached folks that own some of the land, and there was no desire to sell it either. So we have to continue to look strategically. Where can we find, a few hundred acres here or there that can go into commercial business, BP1, industrial development, but still let's try to support this and have some balance. We can't, we got to have a balanced approach, and I agree with that. That's what I think, and I'm only one vote. But I would support looking at, I think Kelly would, I don't want to speak for Kelly, but I think I would support looking at this strongly, along with the other things that that's going to come to us from the Ag Stakeholders Group as ways to help and promote some balance as we move forward in the next decade. And I hope that's what we can achieve. Anything else?
Yeah, two things. I want to do a what if. Going back to what David said, about this property that's being developed now. I don't know, I can't remember who owns it and what the developments are. Just outside, well, they border the bypass.
Thanks Depot,
Yes.
the
thank
other
you.
Jennings property.
Yes, so, and it's not about that family or any of that. And just what I'm saying is, what if, is that in the city now?
It is annexed in the city.
Recently?
Yes.
Okay, so what if that property had been PDR'd years ago, in this first round?
Right.
So when the city came along and says we're gonna annex it, does that do away with the,
Yes.
it does?
You can never go from agricultural use, primary.
The easement for a sewer line can't even go through it.
Wait a minute. No,
That was a change in 2017 or 18.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I mean,
well, but I mean, it wasn't in the city, and let's say that it was part of that PDR. Could the city have annexed it like they have, and then started allowing these? They couldn't have. Okay, I didn't
now
understand.
that's one of the
Protections.
One of the protections.
So
one
that
of the
goes
things
to what
we have
David's
look at.
point was. I
We have to look
misunderstood
at the
that.
court, and we have to look at planning and zoning in order to not,
But that-
impede growth in a specific area if growth is headed that way.
Now, make sure I'm right, because I know you all know, but my understanding is if somebody wanted to buy that property and then they wanted to fork over the money to take the PDR off, that is something that I understood as I read at one point was an option.
It is an option.
But it's not going to be,
After 15 years, there's 3 ways out, and one of those is to repay plus the interest.
plus the interest.
To
So,
the
but
USDA and
there's not a lot of people going to do that.
No.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that was, but along your what ifs, and you've heard me say if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. I love saying that. If that had been put under PDR, there wouldn't be development there.
Yeah, that's my question. I was not sure I was
Yeah, you can't.
because I think David was saying the same thing. So that northern.
If you ask the ladies in my house, I don't do a very good job of explaining.
Well, one last thing.
One last comment. There's not a longer lasting investment that we can make in the future of Scott County than protecting prime farmland under our PDR program. It's going to be around as long as there's a government, because it's filed downstairs in the deed records. So it will last forever.
No,
Perpetuity.
I appreciate your all's time and efforts, and appreciate you coming to bring this back to the fiscal court to let them have a update and ask for consideration. And if you all want to put together a email or a letter saying, hey, if we did this much over the next 3 years, you could save this many acres or estimated.
Sure.
Something like that. Is that something you all would like to see?
Yeah, but I'd also like to, and I don't know if this, at the end of the day, doesn't require a consultant. What I'm going to suggest is, what do other communities, like Fayette County, what does LFUCG do to preserve all of their farmland and cause infill? And what do other, outside of Kentucky, what are other communities doing?
I'll give you the short answer on Lexington. Their minimum lot size is 40 acres. It has been. And at this point, I could not support.
And what is ours?
5.
Okay.
I could not, because I feel like we'd be, without making a compensation to those property owners, it'd be very difficult for me to support changing our minimum lot size to like a 40 acre.
Right.
I mean, it would just be
It'd be a shock to the system.
a shock. I mean, a lot of people, their property values they feel like would be impacted, and that's just a concern that I have. Number 2 is, I don't know the dollar figure and how many. I know it's 30 plus years, but their PDR program has put in hundreds of millions of dollars.
And I think they have. Isn't there a PDR property like right on our county line?
Oh, yeah.
Right there for them? Yeah.
And
one of the properties that we got was because it was right across the road
Okay.
from theirs.
so, but if we instituted funding for the PDR, and we encourage future courts to do it as well. Over time, you're going to help bring more balance. I appreciate your time, and I will say this, look forward to, if you could send us an email, then we'll have more conversations.
We'll get back and visit with you
All right.
again.
All right, thank
Okay?
you.
All right, thank you.
Katina May, thank you for being with us this morning, and she is the treasurer of the Bluegrass Crime Stoppers, and you have met with Cam
Yeah, we met on Zoom.
and have presented, and I have shared with the court, Katina, just the agreement of affiliation, and wanted you to come and share some information, and then allow for any questions from court members.
Sure.
Appreciate the work that you all do and what you've done and the impact that it has made. I got on the website, your all's website, and just wanted to look for my own
I wish we were
information.
able to put out more about what we do. You know, anytime you're dealing with any kind of crime and everything, there's just some things you just cannot say. And we try to protect our tipsters with their anonymity and everything so that they remain anonymous. But there are several high-profile cases, everything, homicide cases. We had 6 homicide cases solved in Lexington back 2 years ago. And so having those numbers, we would love to be able to advertise that out to the public. Everything we can in generalizations, but we can't do it for specific cases, and those are the cases that are being noticed and everything. So a lot of it and everything kind of goes unseen and everything, but we can talk about, you know, things and things. What I did today was I kind of brought what our budgeting items are. I also brought a total of what Fayette County, because we do most of our court costs and everything through Fayette County. For the year of 2024, we received just under $1,300 from Fayette County court fees. We also participate with Jessamine County. It was just a natural progression. And we do I would say we do less than $500 through Jessamine County.
So I asked that question.
And that's a fair question.
I mean, you know, because the court gets has many groups that come and say, you know, we'd like for you to participate, and at the end of the day, you know, I'm like, well, what does that really cost? What is it costing someone who, you know, that dollar per case goes on the end of the expense that may fall back on, I don't know who exactly, who.
Well, under the statute, you know more about this than me, but if we do the agreement of affiliation, it would allow for $1 to be added to court costs for every kind of criminal case. It accepts traffic cases, right?
Traffic cases, family court, things of those natures.
And that dollar would go to fund towards funding the Bluegrass Crime Stoppers, which y'all use that to, I guess, pay rewards or
it goes into the administration of the program and everything. So most of it does go towards that is our largest expense is our rewards that we pay out.
Yeah, my whole thing is when a group comes and asks for money, I'm like, well, what are, you know, where's it going? How does it benefit us? What does it do? At the end of the day, what is the return on investment? There are some nonprofits and charities that their administrative expenses are much more greater than what their actual, what goes out the door to help the general public. But you're not, you just, when you said Fayette County, that's, in the end of the day, not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money. No, it's
so
not.
You've answered my question.
Most of our funding, we cannot accept anything beyond the court cost of thing from any government agency. We're supposed to remain totally, you know, bipartisan.
Right.
The thing. So at the end of the, I did some things from the budget. So we have a budget of $95,000 and everything for next year. Most of that is paying for our fundraisers, and that's where we get the majority of our funds.
And that's a lot less than I would have anticipated.
Yeah,
That's,
and so even doing our fundraising, we're expected to do rewards this year of 23,000. So most of that, is just generating. It's just the way that we have to spend money in order to make money.
Right.
So we don't even have legal counsel. We actually participate with Crime Stoppers USA and use their legal everything, which is a great deal for us.
So you just piggyback off that, and you don't have to have your own expense.
Exactly.
But looking at, like what they do with the posting on social media,
Yeah.
and that's where most people see it. And then, I used to see it on TV more, but
Yeah.
it's the posting on social media and encouraging local citizens to
Yeah.
to help law enforcement get somebody off the streets.
Well,
I mean-
there's a natural progression too, and everything, because anyone that's in law enforcement knows and everything. We've got some major pathways through the interstates. Lexington especially, because we have 75 and 64 that's right there with us. So the natural progression sometimes is something comes from Georgetown into Fayette County, and then sometimes things come from Fayette County into Georgetown. And so we're also hoping to kind of get, where we can host meetings and everything, where the different jurisdictions can kind of break a little bit of that barrier and everything, and be able to talk, back and forth a little bit easier. And so we're hoping that maybe we can be a bridge for that as well.
But I would recommend to the court to consider the agreement of affiliation. I just think it's a positive thing. I think it helps get criminals off the streets and helps law enforcement. What other questions would anyone have?
It's just a 2-year agreement, right?
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
One of your, I think maybe it was somebody's question was, would you want the agreement to overlap until the next court? So
But it's no money out of our pocket.
No.
So
I think it's
I don't
fine.
think it matters, yeah.
If you wanted, you could do it through the end of this term and look to renew it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I was going to say with respect to the money, and you can chime in on this, but like if a person's convicted, right, and there was a reward paid in that case, then part of the deal is they get ordered to pay restitution to pay back that reward.
Right.
So
we're just now starting to see that.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that successful?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just now starting to see that. The people that originally started Crime Stoppers back in 1994, 98, somewhere along in there, they didn't realize that there was a KRS that was on the books that would allow for that. So there were some other people that came on board that kind of dug in there with me and kind of figured out what we had and everything. And so we actually petitioned Fayette County Court, to start honoring these things. And it was a process and everything, and we've now got it underway. And I do, every month I do a reconciliation back to the county attorney.
Okay.
And everything, and then they are paying restitution.
And the
they-
only other comment I would make is on our Zoom call the other day, Mary Tobin, she's the first assistant Commonwealth's attorney with Kelly's office. But anyway, she came from Fayette County. So she was very complimentary of their program and thought it was successful, in her experience.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, and
Thank you.
appreciate what you all do. And y'all are all not like you're all it's a nonprofit, and you're
We're
all
a
volunteers.
nonprofit. We're a board of, we have a room on our board for 30 folks and everything. And right now and everything, it's all regarding Fayette County. We are looking to change our bylaws so that we can, if we do a partnership with Georgetown, we could have people from Georgetown also participate on our board.
That'd be fantastic.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that said, then I have no other items. Well, I've got two other things. I've lost my mind. Chris is going to speak, and Uriah is here as well. And I shared with you all about the ambulance accident that happened, and there was thankfully no one hurt, but it does impact our fleet. I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
Yeah, so on Tuesday, we had an ambulance coming back from Lexington. They didn't have a patient on board. and at the intersection of Broadway and Oliver Lewis, they got T-boned. The police report does say that the other driver was at fault. They ran a red light. But it caused pretty significant damage to our ambulance. We anticipate that it's going to get totaled. We're waiting on the adjuster, CAECO adjuster, to come out and verify that for us. But there was some damage to the box, and it's kind of warped the floor in there, and it's just, we feel pretty certain, and JR does too, that it'll get totaled. So you're right, made some phone calls. The company that actually, that we have the 2 ambulances ordered from, PennCare, has one on the lot that a fire department to the north of us had ordered and then changed their mind and didn't want. So they say we could take delivery of that in June of this year, which is...
You heard that right, June,
Right.
not June of 27.
Right. That's pretty amazing. They say the cost on that is $360,000 for that ambulance. Right? I don't know what we'll get out of the insurance settlement.
Not 360.
No.
But, you know, and who knows? I don't even want to speculate on what we'll get. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you real quick, would that one take the place of one of the 2 that we have?
No. This would just replace the one that was wrecked.
Okay.
Yeah.
did the person that hit us, they have insurance?
It's just...
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So, additionally, the PennCare has said that until June, they would provide us a loaner ambulance free of charge if we agree to purchase the $360,000 one. So we could take delivery of that within the next week or 2. So that would get us through. Currently, we have a fleet of 10 ambulances. 4 of those are out of service due to mechanical or electrical issues. So we have no backup, which is not a good thing, especially with the current weather situation. We have all 6 of those ambulances staffed and on the road today, but you know, we're not sure when we will get one of those 4 back to serve as a backup.
Now, when we open on Lexus Way, we're shifting from Broadway, 1
2.
or 2. Okay, we're shifting 2.
Yeah, we'll leave 2 down here at Broadway and have 2 out on Lexus Way and then our county
But
stations.
we always have 6 that are responding,
Usually.
and we don't have that backup.
Correct.
David Livingston.
So with that amount of money, we have to, I would assume, vote, but in lieu of that, can you declare a public safety emergency in order to go on ahead and agree to that?
Well, that was part of my conversation yesterday, and there is our attorney has to say yes.
It is Sourcewell pricing, if that matters.
Pardon?
Sourcewell, it is Sourcewell
No.
pricing.
We wouldn't have to go to bid
We wouldn't have to go to bid,
because it's Sourcewell.
but I would think that we would have to vote on it.
No, 1,000 times yes, you would have to vote on it. In my-
If you can do it now.
Without having to wait a week.
Without waiting.
So that somebody doesn't come in and buy it after Monday.
Well, I've asked Chris if they would hold it till next Friday because we've got court on Friday a week from now, and they said yes.
They did say yes, they hold it, correct?
I was gonna say special call
I'll
meeting
look
on
at that
Monday,
though,
otherwise.
David.
If they-
I'll look at the law on that and
I mean,
then,
because
yeah.
if you can declare a public safety emergency on that, then
Well, I mean, not having a backup is an issue to me. And if you think we can wait till Friday, and you know, I wanted you to speak today and share the reality and share the you know, we will realize some money, but I don't want to speculate on what we will get back.
I know Stacy submitted the police report to CAECO yesterday. JR was going to try to get a hold of the adjuster and see if we could expedite getting them out there.
So we have 2 ordered right now, is that right?
2 that we will take delivery of in December, well, November, December of 2026.
We paid for one, Kelly. We paid for one. We paid for one in this budget, and the plan is to put the other one in next year's budget.
Correct.
But if we got the other 4 back and going here in the next few months, felt comfortable with everything again, could we potentially back out of one of those 2 and have it sold if we don't need it?
I don't know, Kelly, what we did, because our fleet is aging, obviously. So we have 3 ambulances now that are over 200,000 miles and 9 years old. So I think in the next couple of months, we're probably going to.
Could you do, and you and Uriah, just give us a short spreadsheet, and I've seen it before,
Yeah.
of here's our ambulances, here's how many miles, how old they are, and then, the 2 new ones that are on order that's not coming till November, December of 26, they were going to take, you had designated, because I remember you had designated, hey, it's going to take this one and this one's
Right.
off the fleet.
Yes.
So I think that would be good information for you all to see, right?
Sure.
The other thing, Judge, I'm sitting here thinking, trying to forecast. All right, Chris, so, and this has no reflection on you, but this is the second
sounds like
one
it's going
we've
to.
totaled in 3 years.
We didn't total this one.
Well,
Potentially.
but somebody else did. But we basically lost an ambulance.
Yes.
And do we need to start planning ahead? Because the sheriff's office, we would wreck a vehicle about once a year, and you know what I'm saying, Judge, is you don't want to plan for that, but then you do want to plan for that at the same time. If that's something that we need to consider going forward, to have one of them, just in case.
Yeah.
So I
it's a
think we
great
get
idea.
this from Chris, and then let you all look at the list, and then I think I bring on the agenda next Friday. Do you want any other additional information that we can then vote on next Friday to if it's able, and I think we're able to. But I don't think we have to put it out to bid because it's Sourcewell.
Correct.
If you all want to elect to purchase that, that's your all's purview.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, my mind thinks on a small sample of, if you go to buy a car,
Mhm.
and you go home at night, and they say, we'll hold it for you, and another guy,
Right.
or girl, gets a contract on it that night.
Yeah.
We've got a verbal from them.
We do.
But there's no contract, and there's nothing to stop them from selling that ambulance between now and next Friday, other than one person saying, we won't. I still feel if it can be declared a public safety emergency, I would rather, we have to replace it one way or the other. And you're not gonna go buy a used one. I mean, so I just don't, from my perspective, don't see the need to wait a week. And if there's, because they got more than one salesperson out of that.
Yeah, they do. He said that.
Somebody could put a contract on it out from under us, and a verbal agreement's not gonna do you a bit of good. And especially if there's one.
So if the pleasure of the court is to have a special called meeting on Monday, and
We Zoom.
and do it we could do it, I think we could do it a Zoom option as well. Yes, but like do it at 4 o'clock on Monday.
Just because of the urgency.
Yeah, I just worry about somebody.
So can Cam,
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I'm sitting here trying to figure out the answer to your question while we're talking. I think probably to declare it an emergency, the court may have to vote on that anyway.
But-
Call it an emergency.
but I don't, because of the Sourcewell option, I don't think we have to declare it emergency. It's a decision of this
I
body.
mean, for you to go ahead and spend the money
yeah.
without on us
That's
voting
two
to
different-
spend the money.
Oh,
Yeah, that's-
you're putting it on me.
I'll give you my support.
Yeah.
No different than if a storm came through and you had to declare emergency and start spending some money without the court's approval to protect property and preservation of life. That's the
I'll do
difference.
what, if we can't make a decision because we can't make a decision in this meeting, but getting feedback from you all, if I am allowed, but I would prefer just to call a special call meeting
I
on,
think that's what I would do.
I would prefer to have a special call meeting on Monday at 4 for the consideration of the purchase of an emergency.
And have all the information you can gather.
Absolutely.
We'll do a GoFundMe over the weekend.
Bake sale.
But this model that's coming off in June meets your all's.
It is.
Is it an aluminum box or a wooden box?
Aluminum.
And that's what we want.
Yeah, it's a 2022, so it's the same thing as we got on that emergency purchase when we replaced the last one.
It's a
It's a Dodge
22,
chassis.
and it's a Dodge chassis, is it? And 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not sure what it's like a comparable to a 550, but I don't know what Dodge.
550 or something like that. So, will you send me an email
Sure.
with the specs and the cost, and then we'll call a special call meeting for Monday, advertise it,
Okay.
and then in between now and then, if we get any additional information, I think that's what you all are asking me to do. So,
And you did
anybody
ask
else?
Judge, there's no money down. We don't have to pay him money down. He said, just pay it on at the, so we at least have time to find out what we're going to get reimbursed.
I wouldn't, like, it wouldn't, I wonder if they'd allow us, like, to, because I know we're putting one in next year's budget, and we've already paid for one out of this year's budget.
Correct.
Would they allow us to bridge to July 1 and pay them after July 1?
I mean, it's a conversation we can have.
And then I need to talk to Michelle about what we have as well. But I'm just trying to think, could you ask them to ask that question if we could bridge and pay them X now and then pay them?
Pay them whatever we collect off our insurance.
Yes.
And pay the balance in July.
Pay the balance in July.
Yeah, we can ask. Sure.
So we'll call a special call meeting and give you more information at 4 o'clock on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then last thing that I did intend for Chip to share, and this is monumental. I mean, I cannot tell you all how many emails Chip and I mean, since really the day that Chip, like when Chip came on, we applied for this grant.
Mm-hmm.
And we were awarded this cybersecurity grant for how many thousands?
It's just over 446,000.
And we've not seen a dollar.
Yeah.
And it's, how long has it been?
Well, we did get approval for the grant, I think in June maybe, but then we made a change because some of the funds that were in the grant we were not going to be able to use.
Right.
So for what we wanted. So we asked, can we use it on this instead? And we've been waiting for that approval. And we've gotten the final approval on that 4 or 5 times now, but not the final approval. So this week I got an email saying that it was at the last step, but they just want to cross their T's and dot their I's one more time. But it's gone from the state's Homeland Security to FEMA to CISA, which is like the federal level of cybersecurity, then back to FEMA, and it's now back at the state, which it approved all those it was approved. So it's on the last step that had been approved as the first step. So we expect it anytime.
So we anticipate a thumbs up email that says you can expend funds and then get reimbursed.
Correct.
So that's how it works.
Yep.
But we have not expended any funds because we didn't have this approval. So that's a big thing, and I wanted y'all to know that we're very close to being able to put the plan in motion. And that involves a lot of work with the Madison County Data Center and the work that we've been trying to do for some time now. So thank you, Chip.
All right.
Any questions, comments? Anything else from anybody? Court members, anybody else?
Real quick, I got a little distracted here on my phone because everybody, and I would appreciate if you all, if you're on social media, to put this out there, to keep kids away from the culverts and drainage. Because there is a 3rd grader in Franklin County, Frankfurt, that went missing from the bus stop this morning, and they found him. I don't know if he was trying to jump a culvert or was standing near a drainage hole and got swept into it, or exactly, I don't know the details, but it's an awful thing. And like I was thinking about, even in our neighborhood, at Radford Place, with the drainage space, the flood area and stuff, it's very unsafe right now.
David, thanks for sharing, not like encouraging us to share that warning and prayers for that family and that child. That's terrible. Terrible. But we'll share something about, encouraging folks to stay away from that. Anything else?
On positive news, can we do some kind of proclamation maybe with the Great Crossing High School basketball team?
Cam and I will work on that and get that taken care of, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there were 3 individuals, Malachi, and then a young lady that played volleyball, and then another young person that was a track member at Great Crossing that won a state All-American status. So we'll try to wrap all that and do it at once, but in different proclamations.
That's fine.
Can we get some risers so when we stand behind them, we take a picture, we can ask them.
Stools.
Yeah, something.
So,
He'll have to be on his knees on the front.
well, if there's nothing else, I think it's great. Please, let's all say a little prayer for the rain to slow down, and then, of course, let's go ahead and do a moment of silence for that little family in Franklin County. Thank you all. Be safe, and we'll adjourn our meeting. Thank you all.